It is so hard to believe that Liz and I just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary. In this episode of the I Can't See You podcast, I'll take a look back over the 30 years and what's changed, and I'll look forward to what we've got coming up next.
From Studio C, welcome to the I Can't See You podcast with David. He can't see, but he's got a lot to say and a face for radio.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 78 of the I Can't See You podcast. My name is David, at David Benj on all the socials. I invite you to check out my social channels and connect with me over there on Twitter and Instagram and even on Facebook if you want. I posted a funny video today of Liz and I on Facebook, so, become my friend and you can have a look at that. It was our anniversary today, and I'll get into that in a second. But before I get into that and looking back and looking forward, I do want to talk about the bugs. I know I've mentioned them over the last couple of episodes, and I right now sitting in Studio C here in Swarthmore, Pennsylvania. I have a oil diffuser going with eucalyptus oil to try and keep the bugs away because evidently they don't like that. And it's worked to various degrees over the last couple of weeks, and they're just not going away. And we've tried a few things, and there are some times that we get them where it's not so difficult, and then other times they just seem to come from everywhere. So I'm not quite sure what the story is. We have a few folks looking at it. Both our plumbing guy and the company that exterminates for the building is checking into it. The best we can tell is they're coming in a water line somewhere, and it may be for the HVAC system, which, is building wide. So even if we get rid of them here, at some point they come back because, if they're in the system, they go from one HVAC unit to another inside our building. So we're still working on that, but I'm telling you, I am breathing in these eucalyptus fumes, and I can breathe really easily right now, I have to tell you. I love the oil diffuser, and we at other times of the year, put other things in them. But, lately we've been going through eucalyptus oil like it's going out of style. So, and I'll tell you a funny story about that in next week's episode, because it kind of ties in with Father's Day. And I want to do a Father's Day episode and talk about some things with my dad that are some funny stories and some things that should have been shared. And, now that he's gone, can't be. And I'm a little saddened by that, but we'll get into that next week. This week, I want to talk about the last 30 years, June 10th, which is the day I'm recording this. It's Liz and my 30th wedding anniversary. And, throughout the day, we were thinking about it, and obviously it's a lot different an anniversary than we're used to because, we're sitting at home all day. Liz still had school today. In fact, she actually ran to school and had a meeting after she got done with the kids via Zoom. And, it was to celebrate. We actually got takeout food, and it was the first time we did any kind of takeaway since the middle of March. We were not really excited about doing stuff like that. Because, we're just leery about bringing something home and then you've got it on the containers, whatever. I mean, we're in a big building where, there's a lot of people on top of one another here. And, so we thought we'd give it a try. And our former neighbors, Mike and Lisa, had wanted to get together, social distance wise, have a picnic type of thing. And we just weren't ready for that at this point. Their anniversary is tomorrow. And they are the year before, so it's actually their 31st anniversary. But every year we get together with them. This year we did not. But it ended up being a nice anniversary because we did get the takeaway from a Chinese place that we like. And there are two Chinese food restaurants near us that we enjoy. One is in Media. One is in Brookhaven. The one in Brookhaven is near the West Coast Video, which I mentioned last week, or where it was. It's not there anymore. And the one in Media is near our old house in Media. And we were going to go to that one. And then we realized in the summertime and late spring, Media does this thing called Dining Under the Stars. And of course, with the COVID-19, that's in this section of Pennsylvania, that's the only way you can dine. You can only dine outside. And so dining under the stars may not just be a Wednesday thing. It might be an everyday thing for now because, that's the only way the restaurants are going to survive is if they have some traffic, and if they're only going to get traffic if they have tables outside. So the main street in Media is called State Street. So we thought, well, if we go to Margaret Quo's was the place in Media, which we like a lot, and I guess if we had to boil it down, that's probably our favorite of the two, but we get different things from each place. And we thought if it's dining under the stars, it is going to be packed because we just went in Pennsylvania, there's a red, a yellow, and a green state. And we just went into the yellow state last Friday, I guess, where it allowed the people to go and dine outside. So we thought, wow, it's the first dining under the stars. People have been cooped up. It's going to be jammed. And, we've gone at other times, intentionally gone to dining under the stars, and you have to wait, an hour for your food. And we just didn't want to wait that long and just to take it home. So we thought, we're not going to go into Media. We'll go into Brookhaven. We ordered it ahead. Jacob had to work, so we went and picked him up. And before that, we got our anniversary gift from Giant Supermarkets, which was 9 cents a gallon gas because because like everyone else, we've been eating at home every day for the last 3 months, and there's 4 of us here. So Liz has been spending between $100 and $200 a week on groceries from Giant, which when Jane is not home and we're not eating home every day, we maybe at the supermarket spend, maybe $60 to $80, and that's supplemented by, a trip to Costco and a trip to BJ's. Now, we haven't been buying as much from there because we just don't have the space. We have a small fridge. Again, it's an apartment. We downsized figuring, how many people are going to live here. Mostly it's going to be, Liz and I, and sorry, there goes a fly in front of my face. It's mainly going to be Liz and I, and, with Jacob to a degree. And Jane would, of course, come and visit occasionally. But, like I said, she's been living here for the last almost 3 months now. So the fridge has no space for stuff from BJ's or Costco. We get, non-perishable stuff from there sometimes, like the pita chips that we get at one of them, and get some cleaning supplies or trash bags, at some of them, and of course paper towels and toilet paper. But food-wise, not so much, other than maybe again non-perishable stuff that can first sit in quarantine for for a couple of days and then make it to either a shelf or a closet or whatever. So so we the supermarket does the points for the gas, and so we got $2.20 off a gallon, and they were selling it for $2.29. Now we saw it at other places for $2.19, but we didn't have $2.20 off for those stores. So we filled up with a little bit over 18 gallons and spent $1.81 to fill up, which was very cool. So that was I guess that was our only anniversary gift, and then we went and picked up Jacob. He was working at Target, and then went and picked up the Chinese food over in Brookhaven. So it was nice to get out, although it was kind of hot today, and here in southeastern Pennsylvania. And one thing we've noticed between Liz and I am always usually cold, and Liz is usually always hot. So we're starting to wonder how it's going to work, and I'll get into this more a little bit later, how it's going to work if we move to a warmer climate, thinking, Florida or somewhere along the Gulf Coast or an island, in the Caribbean, wherever. And again, I'll get more into that in a little bit. So, I was sitting in the car while she filled up with gas. The engine was off, the windows were up, and I was fine. Now, it was 91 degrees here today. I'm in shorts and a t-shirt, so that didn't matter. And I just can't tell you how much I just love wearing just shorts and a t-shirt, and look forward to the day where that's what I wear every day, whether it's December or July. I'm definitely looking forward to that. And, one of the things, especially lately, and maybe moving to a warmer climate won't be helpful. The main reason to move to a warmer climate is because of the psoriatic arthritis, which I touched on a few episodes back. It's been horrible the last couple of days in a couple of joints. So I don't even know how that is all going to play out. So we'll see. We'll see about that. But so throughout the day, we've been thinking about 30 years ago, and to think back. So it's before we had kids. We still had the video store, and it was life is so different. And just even thinking, last week was our 4th anniversary of living in this apartment, and all along when we bought it, we thought, well, we'll probably be here 5 to 7 years. A lot of it depended on my mom and how she did. If she continued to live past 7 years, we would, obviously we would stay because, we had to help her do what she needed to do and get what she needed. And, even though she was living in a place where they had all or some of the amenities that she needed, she still liked stuff from Target, and she liked when we picked her up fried rice from P.F. Chang's, or there was a Thai place that she really liked, also got fried rice from that, or sometimes a pizza. She liked that. She liked, because she didn't always like the food where she was at Maris Grove and Rose Court at Maris Grove. So, we were always, like I said in previous episodes, we were out there, once or twice a week. And again, at the end, a lot more than that. So, we felt tied to the area because we certainly couldn't leave her on her own. We had to, even though I talked to her on the days that we didn't visit her, it was just something that, we had to do. And look, I like doing it. And, there were days on the phone where, I could tell, she wasn't feeling right or whatever. And, sometimes I knew that if I just talked to her, she would, perk up a little bit, or, say that she needed something, or if you're coming out this way, which of course it's it's 10 miles away. The only reason we're going out there is because we're going to be taking her something. We don't go out there very often other than go to Costco. And sometimes that happened too. Sometimes we thought, oh my gosh, we need such and such, let's go to Costco. And then I would call my mom and say, hey, we're going to be out at Costco. Do you want us to pick you anything up? Yeah, I'm out of Oreos, or I'm out of I'm out of sugar wafers, which she liked a lot. And we would run into Target or wherever and get them and take them over to her. So just thinking about how all those 30 years, how things were different. When we first got married, we lived in Brookhaven in a townhouse. It was fine. It was just 2 bedrooms. One bedroom we didn't even have a bed in. It was, my office set up. And, it had a couch in there if you wanted to sit and read, which I think Liz did. I of course never did because it was, hard to read stuff in there. If I could read anything, I would read the mail if I could when we walked in the door. And that's, and just reading in general. So, that was when I could still read printed materials. My vision wasn't great, but I could still read, the address on a mailing label, or at least the beginning of a letter to know that I wanted to read more of it, or to know that it was junk. So if it was something I wanted to read more of, then, if Liz wasn't home, she would read it when she got home. And, and then we moved to media. And then, right after we moved to media, Jacob was born, and then, a couple years later, 3 years later, Jane was born, and just things started changing. And how, just looking back and thinking, how we spend summers at Mike and Lisa's pool, and they have a daughter named Maya. So, the kids were all friendly, and they would, play, and just how different things are 30 years later. I'm actually lighter weight-wise. I have less hair. Liz's hair is much grayer. And as I said in the video today that is over on Facebook, I probably caused maybe 25% of that, give or take. The kids probably more, but she was going gray long before the kids, and probably long before we got married. I'd have to look at the wedding pictures, which I did post one along with the video, and we certainly look younger, that's for sure. So, she was just a couple of weeks out of college. Liz was when we got married. It's funny. We were going to get married. So we got married June 10th, 1990. We were going to get married in September of 1990. And when we started to sit down and plan the dates, my dad wasn't feeling great. And again, 1990 this is. My dad wasn't feeling great, and he said, I don't know if I can make it to September. Okay, Dad, we'll move it up. When does she graduate? And she graduated June 3rd. Okay, well, why don't you do it the next week or the next day? Well, we couldn't do it the next day because June 3rd was a Sunday. Nobody has, as far as I know, not many folks have weddings on Mondays. So we did it the following week. When we figured it out, we figured, okay, we'll do it on the 10th. And we did. And again, June 10th, 1990. Let me just remind you that the day this is being released, this episode, June 11th, is the day my dad died. Not in 1990, not in 2000, not in 2010, in 2012. So 22 years and a day after we got married, my dad died. So, so when we think about that and we tell him, when he said, oh, I'm not feeling too great, and it was around our anniversary, I'm like, yeah, well, I'm glad we moved the wedding up a few months for you. And he would always laugh at that, and it always made him smile. So yeah, it's kind of funny how there are a couple of different big things that happen in quick succession. December is a month like that where a lot of big events happen. A couple of big eye surgeries for me, and some other things, and in June is the same way. So June 10th. We got married. June 11th, my dad died. June 12th, Jacob graduated high school. I'm sure there's a couple other things that right off the top of my head I'm forgetting. And again, I'm sitting here, I don't have notes. And, before I hit the record button, I think, what am I going to talk about? I know the general terms of what I'm going to talk about, but I don't want to forget this and I don't want to forget that. And, sometimes when I do end, and I sit there and I listen to make sure everything is good, I'm like, oh, I forgot about this. So hopefully I don't forget about anything today. But that's the way I do it. And I haven't come up with a better way. And when I spoke to Max Ivy about how he goes when he speaks live at a conference, how he does it, I said, how do you remember what you're going to say? He said, well, I don't really remember. I tell stories about what happened to me, which is pretty much what I do on this podcast, unless I have guests on. And if I do have a guest on, then of course I, research the guest, and, there are many things that I want to touch on, and, certain things that, I don't want to forget. And sometimes I will type out an outline and just listen to it a couple of times, from my computer. So I remember to hit on those notes. I tried some other things, but they just didn't work. And because I'm wearing headphones, I can't wear an earpiece that would have a script that I could listen to. Because I did used to practice that when I was in high school, typing up a script, and then at the time I would be able to read it, and then have, kind of like the reporters did, and maybe they still do, where they have the earpiece and they just do their report and they listen to it in their ear, so they just repeat what they're hearing. So I used to practice with the phone. And if you remember back in the day, if you're young enough, you remember you used to be able to call up to get the weather on the phone. In this area, it was WE61212. And I don't remember what WE is. I guess it's 9 and 3. So I guess 9361212. And so I would just repeat what I was hearing. And I got pretty good at it. I could probably still do it. And I still sometimes mimic the telemarketers they call with the automated messages and stuff like that, just to see if I can still do it. And I guess if I ever do public speaking, I'll have to do something like that. So back to the anniversary. So thinking about, 1990, we were right in the heart of the video store. We had the video store for about 13 years. I opened it in 1986. And we shut it down when my parents sold the property in 1999. So 1990, it was going great, and we were working, and for a while we were working together, which was always nice because we would go in at 10 in the morning and stay till. Sometimes I would stay on till 6, and Liz would get done at 4. She was basically working the counter, while I might be, working on payroll or marketing or whatever, or, meeting with distributors and stuff like that. And then there were times at the video store again throughout the years where we had a transition period where maybe the manager we had at the time had left, so somebody had to work during the day. That was Liz, and then somebody had to work at the night, and that was me. And there were a lot of times when Liz was on till 4, and then I came in at 2, and then worked until close, and and we didn't have any time together other than Sundays. Sundays I always took off unless, there was not another manager that could do the Sunday shift. And we did have a couple of assistant managers that, usually covered Sunday, so I didn't have to. But, sometimes people go on vacation and whatnot. So there were stretches like that. There were stretches when we had kids, mostly Jacob, because, 1994, Jacob was born, and, we had the store for another 5 years. Some days Jacob would come in, Liz might go get her hair done, and Jacob would come in and spend some time with me at the video store. We would change some light bulbs in the track lighting that we had. And then we'd order from a pizza guy down the street. He would get chicken nuggets and fries, and maybe I'd get a sandwich or a pizza. And it was just a lot of fun when he did that when he was little. When Jane was born, we only had the store for another couple of years, so we didn't do that too much with her. And at that point, Liz wasn't working the store. Liz did some things at the store, take bank deposits and stuff like that, but she wasn't working the counter anymore. Once we had Jacob, she was done at the counter and, helped run the store, even though she never actually owned any part of the store. So just thinking back just to that stretch, and one thing that, with the video store that, I still think about is, I don't want to say it's a regret, but it makes me a little agitated. There was, I'll never forget, it was Halloween, and both kids were born, so it was either Halloween of '97 or Halloween of '98, because by Halloween '99 we closed. We closed. I want to say June 30th or July 1st of 1999. So either Halloween 97 or 98, every manager and assistant manager asked off. And I don't remember if we had a full-time manager then. I kind of think we did, but I don't remember for sure. I know one of the years we definitely did. And maybe that's the year that I'm thinking of. No one, even though no one else in the managers one other manager had kids. It wasn't her normal day to work, so I knew she wasn't going to work, and I certainly wasn't going to ask her again because I knew she had kids. But no one could work it, including the couple of managers that didn't have kids. So I ended up missing the kids on Halloween, and it kind of upset me a little. Now, what I didn't realize, that was going to get a lot worse in the next business, because the next business, as I mentioned last week, was Salon Supplies and Interiors. We opened that, probably about 6 or 7 years after we closed the video store. And in between, I started digital graphics design with Superfan Dan, and that was a normal, for the most part, 9 to 5 type of job. Occasionally, when we were trying to get a job with a company, we'd work long. I know in one instance we worked almost till 2 a.m. working on designs for, I think it was a basketball team, and they liked it, but we never got the job. So I guess that was some experience that looking back on, it was maybe a waste. It was fun. It's something I like doing, and that's that's the sad thing. Again, as I said to someone today, I am a very visual person with very little vision, and it's sometimes it's hard to give up on stuff if you can even do it just a little. And I can do it just a little. It just takes me a lot longer. So, but once we had Salon Supplies, we were out of the door at home at maybe 7:30, 7:45, and many days we didn't walk back into the house until 7, 8 o'clock at night, because after the store closed, we'd take deliveries if the salons were open. Just trying to keep it going, and so we missed a lot of the kids from 2006 to the time we shut the brick and mortar portion down in 2010. We missed a lot. those 4 or 5 years of doing that. So, and that may be my biggest regret in life of missing that time with the kids. We really couldn't take a lot of time off. Now in the summers, we were closed on the weekends. The salon business is in the summer, it's just dead. So, salons don't come into the store on the weekends unless it's someone. And if somebody called and they wanted to come in on a Saturday to look in our showroom for, equipment, I would certainly go over and do that. But for the most part, towards the end, we closed down for the entire weekend. We were always closed on Sunday, even in the, winter and fall and spring. So just all those things, and just thinking back of all these different portions of our lives together over the 30 years, and different events we've went to, and, how things have changed. We went from a small townhouse to a big single family house in Media, with a nice backyard and and a grill, which those two things we are so missing right now, that we've even considered moving locally, which it just doesn't make sense. And we keep, having to stop ourselves from even thinking about it, because it just doesn't make sense, because we want to move to where it's warmer. And, I don't know where that's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be in Florida or along the Gulf Coast in one of the Gulf Coast states, or Texas. And one of the disappointments of the coronavirus for me, canceling everything. We were supposed to go to, Liz and I were supposed to go to the NFB National Convention this year, and it was in Houston, which was cool for a couple of things. My friend Max, who was on the show a couple months back, he lives in Houston, so we'd get to connect there. And we were going to go down a couple days early, primarily to go to the beach from Houston. Obviously, you have those, Galveston and along, those the islands out in the Gulf there, and to see if it's something that we wanted to consider, living along there, moving down there, and South Padre Island and whatever. So I was excited to do that, because, I've been excited to try and figure out where we're going to go next. And so when that got canceled, that pretty much knocked off that doing any of that this summer. And obviously the coronavirus is what, did that. And, that's one of the things that, has stopped us from starting. We were also going to make some, the place where we live now, this condo, I don't know that either bathroom in it has been touched since the building was built in 1969. So the bathrooms have to be redone. We have to do that to, when we sell it. And we want to, the same thing with the kitchen. We've done some work in the kitchen, but it was just to add cabinetry. We still have to do the other half and, get some new things. And, but that's all obviously put on hold. We can't knock out one bathroom with 4 of us living here. And and to be honest, we're concerned about tomorrow, the 11th. Somebody's having some plumbing work done. When they do plumbing in a unit, the entire building gets shut down, the plumbing. So hopefully it's a quick thing, because there's going to be 4 of us here with 2 bathrooms. So that's 2 flushes, basically. I've already filled a gallon jug or 2-gallon jug with water. So maybe we can get an extra flush or 2 out of that. One thing that we've learned from here, we don't think we want to be in a condo like this, because we want to be able to, again, if we move to where it's warm, we want to be able to plant some lemon trees and some other fruit trees and things like that, which of course in a condo you really can't. Because you don't own the outside. You can't do anything with the outside. And of course, then, as I mentioned a minute or two ago, grills, we would grill all year long. If Liz could get to the grill, she would go out there and grill. And, at the house in Media that we had this grill on a little deck near the house, which was dangerous. We found out when it caught fire. The grill did, not the house, fortunately. That, when the snow would drift, when we had a bad snow, the snow would drift onto this little deck, and it would be because it didn't get a lot of sun, it would be the last place to melt. I mean, we would go out and shovel it a little bit, but any residual snow would never melt. I mean, it was you would always look out there and you'd see grass everywhere, but on the deck you would see snow. I mean, at some points, if I were making tea, I would take, if there was any water left in the kettle, I would take it out and just kind of, put it on there. And of course, that probably didn't help if it was cold out, because that probably then froze pretty quick, even though it was hot water. So we know that when we move, we want to have a single family home of some sort that has a little bit of yard. It doesn't have to be huge, and we're not looking for anything big. Again, considering any place along the Gulf Coast, Florida, either side, Florida Gulf or Florida Atlantic. My mom grew up in Florida. She was born in Tampa, and even though I probably still have some relatives down there, I haven't seen any relatives from her side in quite a while. I'm friendly with a couple online because of doing 23andMe and the other thing, and that's something that in an upcoming episode I am going to talk about, genealogy and how I want to go back and take a look. I'd love to go to where all my grandparents are from and trace the roots even a little bit further than I can now, because I really can't go much past my great grandparents on my mom's side. On my dad's side, I can really only get to my grandparents, which came from somewhere in either Russia or Ukraine or somewhere in that ballpark. I just haven't been able to find. So I'll talk about that in another episode. But, so my mom was from Tampa. We used to go down there when I was a kid to visit my grandmother and some aunts and uncles. And, and then my parents had a place in South Florida, first in Sunrise and then in Boca Raton. So they would go down there. My mom hated the winters up here. So they would go down in November and come back in like March or April. My dad would come back and forth. He hated to stay down there, especially after we had kids. He wanted to come and see them, and he just didn't want to be away that long from me, I guess. So, and I guess other things, but I tell myself it was me. So I do have, I don't want to say roots, but there is some some connection to Florida. So it all will depend on affordability and what kind of work Liz is going to do once we're down there. I'm trying to build affiliate marketing to the point where she doesn't have to go out and find something else. I'm actually doing a course right now to try and build that. And, if it gets going, that could be something that's fairly substantial. And, sometimes people ask me, what is affiliate marketing? And affiliate marketing is like I always say, if you click on my links anywhere on ican'tseeyou.com, they go to Amazon. That's an affiliate link. So if you buy something, once you click on that link, I get a small commission. And the commissions are not huge. At best, it's 10% for luxury beauty, which I don't typically link to on I Can't See You. But it's usually between 3 and 4.5%. So it's not huge. But, again, if I build a site specifically for affiliate marketing, certain products, then, that could become fairly substantial as far as income goes. First stage would be to have enough money coming in where my other company, Digital Graphics, would have enough money to buy medical insurance so that when Liz does leave her job at Walden, there's medical insurance for both her, and we'd bring the kids on because come the end of 2020, Jacob will be out of, he can't stay on our policy because he's 26. So the end of this year, he comes off our policy, so he's going to need something. So the goal is to have, both kids go on a policy. They'd be an individual. They wouldn't be part of a family policy, but, they'd become part of Digital Graphics. And, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe that's not how it works. But from what I've been told by a few, that is how it works. And sadly, I don't have Chris Doherty to help me through that. hopefully his brother Tom will be able to lend a hand once it comes down to it, but not enough money there yet to do that. So that's the first goal. And, and then of course it's, how much, are we going to buy? Are we going to rent? Most likely we're going to buy. How much does it cost to, get into something? Again, it doesn't have to be huge. We're looking for probably 3 bedrooms in case both kids want to come and visit. I don't know if that'll ever happen if we move far away. And especially at the same time, will they come down and visit? And we'll need an office/studio so I can continue the I Can't See You podcast and any other podcast I may start. And I have to tell you, I wanted Liz to come on this episode with me, and she just wasn't feeling it. I don't know if she didn't want to go on with me or if she doesn't like the sound of her voice, or I don't know what the answer is, but, you can certainly reach out to her if you're friends with her on Facebook. Say, why weren't you on that podcast? It was your anniversary too. So I'm sure she'll kill me for that. And the fact that I wake up every morning still after 30 years is, there are miracles that have been had around throughout time, and that has to be one of them. So other places we're considering, I remember seeing something. I love House Hunters International and Caribbean Life on HGTV and some of the other shows like that. And some of my friends laugh at me for that. And I love to do it. In fact, Jane cringes when she says, "What are we going to watch tonight?" Because there's nothing on the DVR anymore because we've watched just about everything. And I said, we're going to watch Beachfront Bargain Hunt or House Hunters International. And she's like, oh. So she's a little tired of that. So I remember seeing I think it was a Caribbean Life episode where they were first talking about St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And the island had 3 very different climates, down the east end, I believe it is, where it's, almost arid and, it's very dry, low humidity. And again, with the psoriatic arthritis, that would be a good spot for me. And, the idea of being in a place like that where there's also a beach to walk on and that's one of the reasons the beaches and the water are one of the reasons we're not looking in Arizona, because Arizona or Nevada, they would be places to go also, but there's no real ocean there. And that's one thing that Liz has always mentioned. She wanted some water and a beach. So, we'll consider, the U.S. Virgin Islands. And that was another beautiful thing. We thought, hey, we could still be in the U.S. currency. Of course, they drive on the wrong side of the road there, but otherwise it's a U.S. territory, U.S. dollars, so forth and so on. Not too much of a difference, and obviously no language barrier. We consider other places in the Caribbean, including Puerto Rico. No habla español, but, maybe it's something we could learn. Although lately I'm having a little difficulty with hearing, and, I don't know that I could even understand English enough to go anywhere at this point. And we wouldn't, the only places we've really discounted and crossed off our list are places, in Central America and in South America. We thought, maybe we could even look at like Chile or Ecuador, where the cost of living would be a lot less. The government is just, to me, it's just not stable enough. It just doesn't seem safe enough. And then a lot of that has come through during, the COVID-19 where, they've had some issues, and I just don't feel comfortable going down there. There's just too many variables, not knowing Spanish. And even if we learn it, how good are we going to be at it and so forth? Obviously, wherever we go, and we have to learn a language, we're going to have to do it, and hopefully it will work out. If it's someplace like that, I would imagine maybe we would rent for a year or two before we're sure. Another place getting serious consideration would be anywhere along the coast in eastern and southern Spain. The connection, that's the place that I have a connection to because my great-grandfather was from Spain. On my mom's side, the Hernandez, where I also get the tone from. So that would be a place, maybe coastal France, maybe, I don't know. I don't know if it stays warm enough in the winter to warrant going there. And I haven't investigated it enough. And again, once we have some time and the virus is, not as worrisome as it is, we would have to go and kind of check out some places and get a feel for it. We've been to vacation in France, in Nice and along the coast there, and we liked it, but we were only there for a week maybe at best. And we certainly, I don't know that I would move to Nice. Or even Marseille. Jane was in Marseille and she enjoyed it when she was there. When she studied abroad in London, she spent a weekend or so there. And that's one thing that we're also learning. One issue that we have specifically with like the Virgin Islands, there's not a lot going on there. We're not going to see our favorite bands come through there, most likely. So if we want to go to a concert, we're going to have to go. So we're going to have to travel. Which again then adds to, you got to make enough money to do that, and so we'll see. And I was thinking about doing, once we get started with it, maybe doing a separate podcast on where are we going and some things like that. But it's something for now that it's the earliest we'll start to look. I'm guessing now is going to be next summer, unless things ease up. By springtime, maybe by Liz's spring break of next year, maybe we can go someplace and just have a look, maybe down to Florida or the Virgin Islands. Again, Florida, spent a lot of time down there, obviously went to school for a little bit down there in Miami, so spent some time in Miami and Sunrise and over in Clearwater and Tampa and, some of those places along there. Wouldn't be against looking even in, again, any place along the Gulf, as long as it has enough stuff. We used to say as long as there's a Starbucks nearby, but, Liz hasn't been to Starbucks since, earlier mid-March, and she hasn't been back yet. She's been making stuff at home, and she's just not comfortable getting stuff from restaurants outside. Like today when we brought our food in, she had pre-planned and put down a covering on the counter so nothing from that we brought in touched the counter. She wore gloves as she emptied the Chinese containers onto plates and bowls, and then immediately threw everything out into the trash. And then once everything was said and done, everything was off the counter. She took the gloves off and then we ate. And so, I don't know how long that's going to continue. But hopefully, like I said, by next spring break, we'll be able to see where we can go and listening to. I listened to another podcast. It's called Eyes on Success. It's a husband and wife that do it. The husband is completely blind. The wife is not, and they just moved houses in Boulder, Colorado, and I could relate to the guy because his name is Pete. They moved into a place and he was still getting used to it, so he didn't know where some things are. And it just made me have flashbacks to when we moved in here. And I was constantly bumping my head on the cabinets in the kitchen because when I was cleaning the counter, I would lean too far in. Sometimes I would hit it pretty hard where I'd, cut my forehead, on the hood on the oven or on the stovetop. And, again, Studio C is... from the middle of the middle of the room down, going vertically, from the middle down, it looks like an office. There's a desk, there's a computer, a telephone, a TV on the wall, and some office-like stuff. But from the middle of the room up are shelves with food and all sorts of equipment, and there's hats hanging on a pegboard, and there's some other boxes that probably haven't been gone through since we moved in here that we could probably go through and throw just about everything out. So when I would sit down, if I walked in, I'd have to have the chair facing me. I'd have to sit down and not start to turn until my butt hit the seat, and then I could spin. But I had to be careful where I spun. I had to be in the middle of the room or my knee would hit the filing cabinet that's on the floor on my left. And, so when this guy was talking about just moving, he said, yeah, I'm still getting used to it. I couldn't find the door. And again, he's completely blind. I have a little bit of sight, enough sight that I don't use a cane walking through the apartment, where he was using a cane as he was going through until he got used to where everything was. So there's that factor. And then there's the factor of, once we move, getting a handle on, how the town or city is laid out and how easy it is. I've been thinking about, boy, it'll be nice when we move to where there's a beach. If we're close enough to the beach, I can walk along the beach. And then I thought, well, how will I know when it's time to get off the beach? And, I don't know. I guess I'll have my phone and, I'll put a, some sort of, I'll do a directions, or some notification, to remind me when I get back to this point, this is where I leave the beach. So we'll see. It'll be interesting, and it'll be fun to explore. And as I told Harriet, who's the president of the Keystone chapter of the NFB of Pennsylvania, she said, "Oh, I didn't realize you were that seriously considering moving." And the part that's sad is, I'm starting to build up things. I'm the treasurer of the Keystone chapter, and I've spoken at the state convention, and that's growing a little bit. And as I mentioned before, I love speaking, doing public speaking, and I think it'd be fun to do more of that. And obviously, if we move, I'll have to start all over from where we move to, from here to there. And again, if it's, if we pick some place that doesn't speak as English is not the main language, then there's that wrinkle as well. And because we're old, me more than Liz, picking up that language and speaking it well, that ship has probably sailed decades ago for me. I can repeat a lot of things, and say it as close to a native as I can. But, like I said the other day, Jane and I were playing Jeopardy on the Alexa app, or the Alexa device in our kitchen. And the word, we had to do something where I thought they said lethal, like lethal weapon. But the word they were saying was legal. So I said kill, was a short word for whatever. I don't remember exactly what it was. The correct answer was Sue. And when I said kill and we got it wrong, she's like, "Dad, why would you say that?" I said, "Wasn't the word lethal?" She's like, "No, it was legal." So yeah, that made me realize, foreign language, I shouldn't say foreign because, obviously people in this country speak Spanish, and I'm sure in some places French as well. Thinking about Miami and, the folks from Haiti, French is the native tongue. So it's just amazing to think back over the 30 years that we've been married, the different transitions that we've made, and going from no kids to kids and all the stuff that come along with kids, the schools and the sports and all the other craziness, and driving to the friend's house. And because our kids were, at Walden, their friends were spread out. They weren't like when you go to a public school, everybody's from the neighborhood or fairly close. So it's just a couple-minute drive. It wasn't that way because, Jacob's good friend at Walden lived in Westchester, and then he went to school out near Westchester. So when we had to go pick him up from school, or take him back to school for something that might be going on at night, it was, a half an hour ride each way, to get him out there. So, doing anything like that, it was something. So we went through all those stages, and then the college hunt, which was always fun, which I loved looking at colleges. We went through that whole thing, and now, it's just transitioning, and it's just amazing to think back some of the things that we remember, from, as I said to Liz today, one of the things, there are a couple of things from our wedding that I remember. One was, and I have a picture, I'll have to find it. And if I can find it and get a good shot with my phone, I'll put it up on Instagram, where, when you get married, the bride always smashes the cake on the groom's face. I opened my mouth wide enough. I think I had half a piece of cake in, and I missed very little, and very little got on my face. So I remember that. But we had ours was held at the Four Seasons in Philadelphia. They had blackberries there, and I love blackberries, as I mentioned in my episode where I talked about losing weight. The blackberries that I eat every night are, maybe a third of the size of these blackberries that I had on our wedding night. At I guess it was the open bar, the appetizer section. They were so huge. They were like the size of my thumb. They were just so gigantic. And it's funny, whenever we occasionally get the huge ones like that, I think back to the wedding, and that's one of the things I remember. And it's just hard to believe that was 30 years ago, and you still remember, like it was yesterday. I can still hear Alex on the video saying, and we haven't watched the video. Maybe we should start doing that every year. Although I don't know that we have a VCR. Saying that, his quip on the video was, brides should be like money. When they get to 40, you turn them in for 220s. So I guess I'll end it on that, right? Sorry, Alex. So that is episode 78 of the I Can't See You podcast. I really appreciate you joining me. And again, if you have any questions or suggestions for upcoming shows, I really do want to have some more guests on. And I'm going to speak to somebody this weekend about coming on an upcoming podcast. Next week, like I said, it's going to be a Father's Day edition. I'll talk more about stuff that I did with my dad, and maybe if I can come up with some of his war stories. I mean, he had some good ones. And he was a POW for 13 months, so that's going to be a good section to talk on, because, we've kind of been in captivity, but only for about 3 months. So not nearly the same. Don't have to trade smokes for food with the Nazi guards like he did. And again, I'll talk on that next week. I don't want to get into it now. But if you do have suggestions, or if you have questions for me, best way to get in touch would be area code 646-926-6350. You have up to 3 minutes to leave your question or comment. Or if you're a business and you need some help, you want to record a little something for your business, I'll be sure to include it in an upcoming episode. And again, reach out to me via email, iCan'tSeeYouPodcast@gmail.com, ICANTCU.com. Sorry, ICANTCU podcast@gmail.com. I Can't See You sounds like a sentence, but it's only 7 letters long. And all episodes you can listen over at iCan'tSeeYou.com, ICANTCU.com. And the 3 most current episodes are on the main page. All the others are on the podcast link up above. If you click on the menu tab that says podcast, you can go and check any of them out. All 78 are there. Hard to believe I've done that many. And again, if you are shopping at Amazon, I would really appreciate if you used one of my affiliate links, whether it's on the page or you just go to iCan'tSeeYou.com/Amazon. That will take you right over to Amazon.com. You could shop. It doesn't cost you anything additional, and puts a couple of pennies in our pocket to help us, not even buy the Starbucks anymore for Liz. I'm not sure. Maybe it'll go for moving expenses a little bit at a time, right? So again, I appreciate you listening to episode 78 of the I Can't See You podcast. My name is David, at David Benge on all the socials. Please stay safe out there. Continue to wash your hands and social distance, and I will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the I Can't See You podcast. Follow David on Twitter. He is at David Benge.